The Marvel Cinematic Universe, started in 2008 and still ongoing today, is considered the golden standard of crossover cinema. Obviously, it had been done before, but Marvel's trend of using stories focusing on individual superheroes to build toward larger team-ups made it pretty unique. But what if I told you the concept had been kinda sorta done on the small screen decades before? The company Rankin Productions, through collaborations with Japanese animators, led by Tadahito Mochinaga, released a number of holiday specials from 1964 to 1980, about 8 of which tell the wider story, with others such as The Easter Bunny is Coming to Town, and Nestor the horrifically traumatized Christmas donkey connected in smaller ways. Now obviously I'm sure the original intent wasn't to have the crossover element, but I find it rather interesting that the decision was made later on to place these specials in a shared universe. Hey everyone, Skull902 here, and this is a look at the Christmas-themed cinematic universe of Rankin Productions. Our first story is the bona fide classic Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, which introduced us to 3 of the series regulars. There's Santa Claus, who will be the subject of most retcons throughout, namely that in this one he's a fussy asshole 90% of the time and insults baby reindeer right after they're born. Comparing this to the MCU, he's kinda like a composite of Captain America and Iron Man, the original Christmas Avenger, but also the one with the most resources at his disposal. Then we've got Mrs. Claus, our Pepper Potts of sorts, who will also change a fair bit, but in this special is just a kindly old lady that wants Santa to eat. Finally, our protagonist Rudolph, the Spider-Man of the group. Young and in need of some guidance to start out, but growing into one of the most powerful heroes in the world through experience. Rudolph is the son of Donner and Rudolph's mother, and is mocked at the reindeer games after impressing his crush Clarice. Figuring he has no chance of being one of Santa's elites, he runs off to live life as a misfit along with Yukon Cornelius, violence-mongering warrior of the blood dimension, and Hermie, a bitch. They meet up with Misfit Toys and King Moonracer on their quest to stop Bumble, abominable snow monster of the north, taming the beast amid a blizzard as Hermie rips all of his goddamn teeth out, with Rudolph's keen ability to shine red light having Santa see the error of his baby-insulting ways, and the two join forces for the first time as they deliver presents to the children of the world, including the Misfit Island ones. In the edited version, ushering in a new era of holly jolly heroics. In my opinion, though there's definitely some values dissonance, it was made in 1964 after all, it's got just a particular charm to it with most of the writing, the animation, and the beautiful songs, including There's Always Tomorrow, with an impressive single-take performance by Janice Orenstein, who was just 15 years old at the time. Absolute must-watch during the Christmas season. Next is Frosty the Snowman, the first 2D entry in the series. Now some will doubt its connection to the others based on this alone, but those people also stick signs in yellow snow that read "Please Eat." This special introduces us to the eponymous Snowman, our Hulk of the RBCU. Whereas Bruce Banner transforms into the Hulk as a result of his anger, nondescript Snowman transforms into Frosty with the power of a magician's hat, making the hat specifically our Doctor Strange equivalent. The story follows Frosty, brought to life after a scumfuck loser magician fails at his performance, throwing his hat away and the local children taking it for themselves. The hat's true power is shown when they put it atop Frosty's head, bringing him to life, aided by how Frosty apparently was also composed of magical Christmas snow. Frosty ventures with one of the kids, Karen, who doesn't ask for a manager throughout the entire special, and the magician's rabbit, Hocus Pocus, to find the North Pole so that he won't melt, with the magician trailing them to get the hat back. Frosty tries to help Karen when the freezing temperatures get to be too much by having her stay in a greenhouse, but the magician locks them in, killing our hero so that he can take the hat for himself. Bastard. Santa comes along to put a stop to the madness, bringing Frosty back to life to live with him in the North Pole and making the magician beg for mercy, Frosty promising the children he would return to meet them again. It's another fun watch. The animation can be hit or miss, but it's got good music and voice acting, with the narration of Jimmy Durant being memorable for his accent and manner of speech, as well as Jackie Vernon capturing Frosty's character perfectly. And we get some nice heartwarming parts in there too, like when Santa consoles Karen. Speaking of Santa though, we see our first retcons to the RBCU with his design being radically different, and his demeanor as well, though maybe not if this takes place after Rudolph. Santa's character would see much more change as the next special focuses on the man himself. Saint Nick's origin story. The only series regular introduced here is S.D. Kluger, who illegally opens mail not addressed to him, though his only other appearance is in the previously mentioned Easter Bunny special. I'll say he's this universe's Hank Pym, considering the lack of interaction with our more prominent heroes. More notable about this special is how it makes further changes to both Santa and Mrs. Claus's characters, giving them a proper backstory, and an actual name for the misses. Burgermeister Meisterburger, dictatorial ruler of Sombertown, is delivered a baby to his doorstep. He burger orders his servant to get rid of the baby, who's blown away by a windstorm and discovered by a bunch of animals that, instead of killing him, bring him to the Kringle family, who raise him to make toys as they have for generations. Kris Kringle attempts to deliver toys to Sombertown, meeting the Penguin Topper and a schoolteacher named Jessica along the way, before being forced out once the Burgermeister order burgers their arrest. From there, Kris meets the Winter Warlock, melting his icy heart with a gift, and the two become friends. We see how the legend of Santa Claus is shaped. He delivers toys by night instead of day, he uses chimneys because doors and windows are ordered to be locked, so on and so on. The Burgermeister eventually succeeds in imprisoning the Kringles and Winter Warlock, aided in escape by Jessica as she feeds reindeer some magic corn the Warlock had, enabling them to fly. Now you may be wondering, if the young reindeer and Rudolph could just learn to fly, what's the reason for this magic corn business? I liken it to the fan theory about how Trunks and Goten were able to transform into Super Saiyans while they were so young. Their parents acquired the ability, which the children inherited to a small degree, obviously more apparent with the reindeer. Kris and Jessica marry, with the Kringles setting up a workshop in the North Pole. They don't really defeat the Burgermeister either. It's said he and his family just dropped dead, but I think that's sugarcoating it. The state his castle is in, the implication that the townsfolk unpersoned him, he probably died how most dictators do, by civilian uprising. But after this, Santa's free to deliver presents as he intended, shaping his legacy as the first Christmas Avenger. It's a good story with some fun songs, improved animation, and a neat little framing device. Many of the things I said about Rudolph apply here, but it also solidifies the RBCU for the most part. Still some flip-flops and retcons, but they'll be rectified later on. In the North Pole, Jessica tells a tale of how long ago Santa had fallen ill and was convinced by a dickhole doctor that nobody cared about Christmas anymore, deciding to take the year off. The missus isn't giving up on the holiday, enlisting Jingle and Jangle, who are equivalent to no one because they don't deserve equivalents, to find examples of Christmas spirit and show Santa that people still believe. The two elves are assisted by baby reindeer Vixen. Weird, but we gotta remember that this was still before they decided to cross everything over. Out of concern, Santa sits after the three with Dasher, while the trio are accosted by the Miser brothers, Heat Miser in particular, whose baby reindeer attacking tendencies must have rubbed off on Santa come Rudolph's birth. Our heroes come upon a place called Southtown, where they make a poor attempt to blend in, leading to a series of events where Vixen's taken to the pound by a dog catcher. Santa, in disguise himself, meets a young boy named Iggy who's convinced by the jolly old man and his parents that Santa is indeed real. Iggy, Jingle, and Jangle talk with the mayor to get Vixen released, but he isn't buying their words, proclaiming he won't believe in any of their Santa business until it snows in Southtown, which never happens. Santa saves Vixen and departs for the North Pole, while the other three call in Jessica to come up with a way to make it snow in Southtown. That way is to talk with the Miser brothers, who provide us with the reason you know this special exists, and I gotta say, Mr. Green Christmas is like undisputedly 10 times worse, I'm sorry, Snow Miser wins. The brothers can't come to an agreement over territory, and the dispute is settled by their superior, Mother Nature. Southtown will get a day of snow, while the North Pole experiences one spring weather day, which has been ongoing for 50 years. So anyway, the story inspires children the world over to renew their faith in Christmas, and give Santa gifts as a way of thanks, along with a letter that restores his own Christmas spirit, so much so that it apparently cures his cold and Christmas is uncancelled, the day is saved, hooray. Maybe it's because I didn't see this one when I was a kid, same with the rest of the series, but I don't quite think it stacks up to the first three. The plot's not bad, but it does feel largely forgettable and suffers a bit from ending fatigue. Really, you're here for the Miser brothers. The songs are good, but only two, which are variants of each other, stand out. In fact, something funny about how late I first saw this special is that I wasn't aware this parody of Blue Christmas in South Park even was a parody. The animation does continue to improve with some really smooth shots and moving camera angles. Overall, it's a step back for the RBCU, with more wrinkles in the continuity that need ironing, but still enjoyable. Apparently, Frosty's become something of a legend since we saw him last, as the kids of Random Village bemoan that they haven't had a chance to meet him. Frosty himself feels the same way, forgetting that he promised to come around on Christmas because he keeps saying someday, and a newspaper from Random Village inexplicably finds its way to the North Pole, inspiring Frosty to visit. We're then introduced to Jack Frost, our Loki of the group, because he's extremely jelly that the kids love Frosty, despite how he's responsible for snow in the first place, which I guess means Snow Miser's out of a job. He causes Frosty some trouble with his winter powers, but the kids are unimpressed. Jack then plots to take away Frosty's very life force, the magic hat. Bastard. He uses Gust to try and get the hat, but the move isn't very effective against ice types, and nabs a different hat instead, leaving as he thinks he's won. Frosty finds himself lonely come time for the kids to go home, but the children hatch an idea: make a snow waifu for him, subsequently named Crystal. They try to bring their new creation to life, but have no luck. Jack Frost realizes he snatched the wrong hat, and goes back to finish what he started. Frosty gives the inanimate Crystal a bouquet of snowflowers, the love in the gift bringing her to life. Somehow. Crystal, the last series regular to be introduced, we'll call the Black Widow of the franchise, because I'm running out of reasons to make up. The Snow People fall in love, and schedule a wedding to take place immediately. Jack Frost has other plans, going for Gust again and landing a critical hit, taking Frosty's hat from him, which turns out to be a Pyrrhic victory because snowflowers are the key to life apparently. Jack defeats himself by throwing the hat back and dumping his ass in the snow. The wedding is on, which is all a big reference to the song Winter Wonderland, except when the kids kill the snowman. That'd be depressing. We got birds that aren't blue, they're married by the snowman version of a guy literally called Parson Brown, but that son of a bitch Jack Frost isn't through, gusting again until Crystal and Frosty glaze him into being a good guy. The snow couple become official, we get a lecture about how winter can't stay forever, they make a reference to the original, and everyone lives happily ever after. This one was kinda meh, if I'm honest. Any conflict is resolved almost instantly, the newspaper at the beginning and the snowflowers explanation for Crystal and Frosty living are quite a stretch as well. I also find it kinda weird that they didn't have Frosty come back to see Karen and her classmates, which likely would have seen the kids matter more to the plot. But it's also not horrible. The songs are alright and the animation's on par with the original. Paul Frees is a bit of a weird choice as Jack Frost, but Shelley Winters works out pretty well as Crystal. Andy Griffith takes over the narrating duties and does a fine job of that as well as his singing parts. But they did make him look like someone who should never be allowed around children. Get out of here, creepy Andy Griffith, or I'll piss on your fucking face. Ugh. Bit of an interesting one here, as it's actually a New Year's special as opposed to Christmas. In the North Pole, immediately after the Christmas Eve trip around the world, Santa receives a letter from Father Time, informing him that the baby New Year is missing. Santa recruits the weirdly de-aged Rudolph, who is, of course, the only one that can navigate the storm, to find the baby, lest December 31st continue forever. Father Time sends for his loyal helpers, General Ticker and Quarter Past 5, to help Rudolph reach his castle, when they're suddenly attacked by the Giant Claw, who's after Baby New Year as his life cycle is ending and wants to stay alive forever, as bro's just too big for a soak in the Lazarus Pit. Our heroes make it to the castle, where Father Time explains how the passage of time works and gives Rudolph his mission. The Baby New Year Happy has run away because all the dickheads in the castle made fun of his ears, so Rudolph must set out to the archipelago of last years to find him. Giant Claw tries to stop the reindeer, but is held off by Big Ben, who should have been named Whale of a Time. Ben takes Rudolph across the archipelago. No luck on 1 million BC Island, and they just missed the baby in 1023, where he's taken by the Claw. That is until Ben intervenes, but Happy ends up blown away to 1776 Island, just to be kidnapped again, so the whole place ends up being a waste of runtime. Our heroes set out to the Isle of No Name, where Rudolph shrugs off an avalanche caused by Giant Claw's ugly screaming, saves Happy by using his big ears to make the Claw laugh, and brings the baby back to Father Time with an assist from Santa so that the yearly turnover can take place as scheduled. This one is kinda boring, to be honest. The idea of the story isn't bad, but the formula gets repetitive. I think it would have been better as a half-hour special to keep things moving. Plus, the justification they present for everyone laughing at a literal baby, Rudolph included, makes for a very confused moral. The songs aren't bad, but nothing memorable, the voice acting's mostly good. If you watch it, do so for the animation, because the experience the team had by this point is really showing. There's some 2D animation near the end as well. Otherwise, it's pretty skippable. Going out of order for this one, which was released later, but you'll see why I think the next is really last. It's Groundhog Day, and Pardon Me Pete is set to make his yearly declaration. Pete comes out of his hole, sees his shadow, and departs back to his man cave, cursing the Northern Hemisphere to 6 more weeks of winter. Pete explains to the viewer that this whole Groundhog Day pageantry is actually a large show to keep winter going a bit longer. So I'm guessing this was before the parson told everyone why that was a bad idea. Also, Jack is invisible to non-magic beings, which means the choice to cross things over must have been a game-time decision for the next movie. So the story is told that in a place called January Junction, the peasants are in a bad way, having to contend with the evil Kubla Kraus, who steals money and ruins harvests because evil. Jack swoops in like a Robin Hood of sorts and makes the peasants ice money they can exchange in place of actual currency. Bad idea, IMO. Those ice sets are going to be liquidated sooner than you think. Kraus spots Elisa, daughter of the farmer peasants, at the pond and breaks up the ice they're both on, idiot, sending Elisa toward a waterfall. Jack saves her from the falls, earning Elisa's admiration as a hero, inspiring Jack to find some way to become human. He travels to the great kingdom of winter clouds to have a talk with Father Winter, who grants the request on a temporary basis, telling Jack he must assimilate to human life by spring to make the effect permanent. Jack begins his quest, meeting Elisa and getting in as the town's tailor thanks to a gift from his friend Snip. Father Winter assigns Snip and a sprite named Holly to watch over Jack, making them human as well. Jack learns more about Kubla Kraus, who's deeply unhappy despite his riches because he lives alone, with only his mechanical creations keeping him company. Deserved. Jack sets out to dethrone him, joined by Snip and Holly. Along the way, Kraus and homecoming knight Sir Ravenel Rightfellow also get the hots for Elisa. How predictable. Kraus has kidnapped Elisa, and the entire family, along with Ravenel, are out to beat his ass. Ravenel saves Elisa in short order, but is hurt. The peasant family take him back to town, completely abandoning the other three, as Jack and his crew are captured by Klaus's Knights, Kubla planning to launch an invasion of January Junction in response. Jack sacrifices his humanity, bringing on a storm to stop the king. The plan works, but Jack has failed in the long run, as Elisa and Ravenel plan to marry. Father Winter explains the groundhog's role in the spring changeover, which convinces Jack to do a little sneaky move. Disguising himself as part of Pete's shadow, Jack scares him, artificially extending winter by a month and a half, which the groundhog starts allowing because it lets his lazy ass sleep more. But once spring starts to come, Kraus hits the reset button on his plot. Jack, human once again, stops him by using Kubla's dummy to send the Knights to their doom, with Father Winter doing the rest. Jack meets most of the requirements to stay human after stealing all of Kraus's stolen stuff, and moves to marry Elisa, but it's too late. Don't be too sad, Jack. She and her family did leave you out to die after all. I think this one's kinda bad, to be honest. I like the idea of the plot, but not its execution, with certain details, such as Jack becoming human a second time or Ravenel's entire inclusion being unnecessary or poorly handled. Many of the characters come off as flat or unlikable to varying degrees, like Elisa's family for abandoning 3 people or Jack himself, honestly. He's a schemer that doesn't really learn anything in the end. Makes it hard to get behind the main character. Aside from that, the music is standard, with one song I rather liked. The voice acting's passable, though Jack's new voice isn't much better than the old one. And while there are some things about the animation that stand out, it feels like it took a small dip. Can't recommend, sadly. It's an early summer day in the North Pole as Rudolph talks with Frosty, now a snow dad. The kids ask to see Rudolph's shiny nose, but the deer has trouble keeping it aglow. Santa explains the backstory of the entire RBCU, and get ready because it's fucking nuts. Long before Santa, there was a wizard named Winterbolt who ruled the North Pole with an iron fist. Lady Boreal, Queen of the Northern Lights, takes human form to curse him to a long rest. Lady Boreal is basically God, and is shown to have led a young Santa, looking a lot like Conan O'Brien, and Jessica to the North Pole, where he would be a much kinder ruler. As Boreal's power dwindles, Winterbolt awakens and plans to cast a blizzard on Christmas Eve so Santa will get lost, then take his place. To counteract this, Lady Boreal endows Rudolph with her power on the day of his birth, giving him his glowing nose which will last until the moment he uses it for evil. So now we know the truth. Rudolph is this universe's equivalent not only to Spider-Man, but also Jesus Christ. So everything was prophecy, from his birth to the reindeer games, the storm, all of it to prepare Rudolph Christ to stop Winterbolt's evil plan, and the wizard is pissed. We see it's him weakening the Christmasiah's nose, and goddamn Frosty feels so out of place after that lore dump. Rudolph's strength returns to him thanks to the protective nature of Boreal's power, meaning Winterbolt's magic isn't enough so long as they're in the North Pole. Rudolph receives a visit from Milton, an ice cream man from Lily Lorraine's Circus by the Sea, who says Lorraine is in debt and the circus will be sold to Sam Spangles, which somehow will prevent him and Lorraine's daughter from getting married apparently, I guess. Winterbolt implants the idea in Milton's head to recruit Rudolph, Frosty, and his family for the circus, with Winterbolt playing nice by giving the Snow family amulets to protect them from melting until the final firework of July 4th is set off. Santa approves of the trip and plans, thanks to Winterbolt's manipulation, to help Frosty with transport before his family's time is up. Wow, the big 3 Christmas Avengers all in one place. Don't get used to it. Frosty and Rudolph Christ arrive at the circus and Miss Lorraine welcomes their inclusion. Meanwhile, Winterbolt has recruited the evil reindeer Scratcher, the anti-Christmas Avenger, to deceive Rudolph, partnering with Sam Spangles along the way. Santa and Jessica are en route to the circus, but Winterbolt puts them through a storm, forcing the couple to traverse on ground. Our heroes are unaware, and Scratcher gets a job at the circus by fraternizing with Rudolph, tricking him into handing Lorraine's money over to a disguised Spangle while the show's going on. Rudolph's suspicious, he and Frosty trying to stop the fireworks to no avail. Rudolph also learning that the money went to the wrong person. As Winterbolt arrives, the reindeer discovers he can no longer light up his nose, as he used it to steal the money. He and Frosty learn the full truth of the situation, as Rudolph Christ makes the decision to tell nobody he was tricked in exchange for Frosty's family not melting. The reindeer becomes a reject with the crowd and his friends, and Frosty is left guilty, wondering if there's anything he can do. Winterbolt discovers the power of the hat, and lies to Frosty about restoring Rudolph's nose in exchange for it. Rudolph is contacted by Lady Boreal, who tells him his powers will come back if he shows bravery. The Messiah tells Big Ben all about it, and the whale encourages Rudolph to try and get his powers back. By the time Rudolph arrives, however, Winterbolt has taken the hat and Frosty is a regular snowman. The wizard challenges the young reindeer, and the chase is on. It's final boss time! Our hero fights off Winterbolt's snakes and the wizard himself, retrieving the hat and returning his glow thanks to the bravery he displayed. Rudolph Christ is back in full force. It looks as though Spangles is going to get the circus, but Rudolph sets the record straight, earning the others' forgiveness and sending Spangles to jail. All is good in the world, until Winterbolt comes back for one last confrontation, and it's Miss Lorraine of all characters that defeats him by throwing her revolvers to break his staff, ridding him of his magic and turning him into a tree. So, fuck it, she's Hawkeye. The effects of his spells are reversed, meaning the Snow family is melted. Big Ben and Jack Frost come through, however, the latter literally breathing new life into Frosty's family so that Santa and Jessica can return them home, while Rudolph elects to stay with the circus for a while. Scratcher gets off scot-free like many conniving fake friends sadly do. I think this movie is pretty enjoyable, and a satisfying conclusion to the story. It's a love letter to the last 15 years they'd been doing these specials, with references to past entries and trying to tie them all together into a single narrative. The lore is so over the top it goes from being really silly to awesome if you've watched any of the others, like how they try to connect the events of Santa Claus is Coming to Town in the original Rudolph special, to bringing unexpected characters like Big Ben back, or references to things like the magic corn, which if my theory stands I guess would make Scratcher part of the OG Reindeer's generation. That said, there are definitely parts like Winterbolt's last confrontation that could have been cut without much need for change, and I wish there was more interaction between the big three. Hell, even Rudolph and Frosty's rapport feels lacking sometimes. The songs are about 50-50. Half of them are retreads or lack a little something, but the ones that are good are pretty darn good. The voice acting's well done, except Jack Frost, and the animation is nice as well, although this was originally a summer theatrical release and was pulled from its first town after about a week, premiering on television later in the year instead. I like the animagic style, and some of the things they did here were interesting, the Ice Dragon's puppetry for example, but it's just not theatrical quality in my opinion. Overall, though, I thought it wasn't the best the RBCU had to offer, but still a good, solid movie. Absolutely worth the watch at least once, especially to see how bonkers it can get. And there we have it. So what do I think of the Rankin Bass cinematic universe as a whole? It makes for mostly good watching. 3 of the specials are fundamental Christmas classics. 2 aren't quite to that level, but still good. 2 are okay but watchable, and there was only 1 I thought was bad. And it wasn't even terrible or anything. Keeping in mind that there are moments you can definitely tell that these were a product of their day, in my opinion these specials have a lasting appeal that make it unsurprising they're always in the Christmas rotation. Pretty solid series, I must say, with big props to the animators and Mochinaga's crew, Mushi Production, and Topcraft. And for those curious about RBCU adjacent productions, I wouldn't consider things like Frosty Returns or the song Red Snow by Psycho Stick as part of the canon timeline. Those are more like isolated alternate universe stories. And this shit is clearly just fanfiction. Jury's out on whether Mad Monster Party or The Little Drummer Boy count, but there are spin-offs, and maybe I'll review them someday. But for the main series, it's some good stuff save for Jack Frost, and I'd recommend giving at least some of them a watch. Thanks for watching. Be sure to comment, like, or dislike the video if you feel so inclined, subscribe and click the notification bell if you'd like to see more. For similar content, a playlist is right here. I have been Skull902, thank you for watching and have yourselves a wonderful day. Points have to be reduced from Christmas in July, however, for not bringing Yukon Cornelius back. Winter would have been a good one, too. No. Burgermeister Meisterburger. So much so that it apparently cures his cold, and Santa is. Santa's uncancelled, everyone. Frosty and Rudolph Christ of. Frosty and Rudolph Christ arrive at the circus, and Frosty and Rudolph Christ appear.